So we've already done the conditional responses. What we haven't done is conditional errors. So let's try this one. Let me clear off this old stuff. All right. Trying to open in a new tab. Oh, it's opening the same tab because something went wrong here. All right. Conditional errors. All right. So first I open up the lab. All right. And so here's the setup. We have a tracking cookie. It performs a query. The results are not returned, but I do see a custom error message if there is an error. So all I can see if there is an error or not. And I'm trying to become the administrator user. And as always, they send you the SQL injection cheat sheet, and they save you the bother of learning that this uses an Oracle database. So that gives us a start. So let's, it's the tracking cookie. So all we have to do is refresh this page, and we'll get the request we're going to mess with. So let's clear off all the old stuff out of burp. And now refresh that page. And here's the get. The get slash will do. This has the tracking cookie in it. So I can send that to the repeater. And as always, the first thing is just repeat it and make sure it still works. So I go to the response, it's 200 OK. And if I render it, I see the page. All right. Now they say if there's an error, I will see an error page. So let's put in an apostrophe. That should create a syntax error. And send it. And the response now shows internal server error. So now I can tell if there was an error or not. All right, now I need to find a appropriate Oracle injection. So if I go here, you use pipe to append things, and there's substring, and Oracle is -- comment, so that's all pretty good. And all right, so there's conditional errors. Now let me just check my notes and see what I did next. With conditional errors, there we go. So what I did was this one next. Let me try this, just to create a situation where I could test things. I went from the apostrophe to this one, apostrophe and 1 = 2, because it's going to be select something where cookie equals something and 1 = 2. So this will convert it into a false condition. And so if I send that, I get no error, because it's not truth and falsehood that matters. So I need to create a situation where I'm going to have an error. And what I found is I had to go to the hints, because I wasn't good enough at doing Oracle. So I went to the hint here, the solutions, and they show you how to make, you have to select from dual. This will append nothing selected from dual, so that will be valid. But here, select from not a real table. This will be an error. So here's a way you can find out what tables exist. So let's try this one. Let's start with this one and make sure it works. All right. So if I select from dual, remember dual is a table that's always there in Oracle. This I thought was an interesting, different way to do SQL injection without the union. Instead of doing a union, I'm just doing string appending. So I have a string here in the tracking ID, and this way I'm just appending another string to it. So I'm just adding some stuff to the cookie, which is an interesting way to get another select in here. So this will select empty string from dual and append it. So let's see what that does. And that does not create an error. So that's good. But if I select it from a table that doesn't exist, like junk, then it's an error. So now I can see if a table exists. So now I can verify that there's a users table. All right. And there, that's an error. So let's go back and see. I expected that to work. Let's see if we can figure out why. An error is returned. So here, oh, you always have to have a where, I think. Well, I remember they said this. You have to have a where, otherwise it will return multiple nulls, and that will not be accepted. You're only allowed to return 1. So you have to do where row number equals 1, or probably limit 1 would do it. So let's put in where. Also, I want pluses, I think, instead of spaces. I don't think you can have spaces. All right, from users, where, what was it? ID equals 1, what was it? Where row num equals 1, okay. All right, let's see if that does it. Yeah, now I do not have an error, so there is a table named users, which they told us anyway, but I'm just going through the steps to see it do things. All right, now, here's how you can test a condition. This is how you do an if in Oracle SQL. You select a case. When this condition is true, then calculate this. When it's false, calculate that. And this will create an error where you try to convert to a character 1 over 0. Division by 0 will create an error. So if this condition is true, you'll have an error. And if this condition is false, you will not have an error. That's what this does. So let me get that. Get rid of the old stuff, put in this stuff, which got the quote at the end. All right. So, and it is actually doing a string append. I have the real cookie, then I append this junk, which is either that or null, and then I append whatever comes after it. So, in this case, I get an error because that condition is true, but if I make that condition false, I should not get an error. And I don't. So now I can test a condition to see if it's true. So now I just have to get a condition that gives us information about the password, and that you can do the length of the password here. So this would be the when condition, length password greater than 1. I should be able to just put that in here. All right, and by the way, the spaces seem to be being accepted. I don't need to use pluses all the time, which surprises me, but it seems to be accepting them, so that's nice. Let's send this. That should be true, so I should get an error, and it is. But if I make it greater than, say, 100, that should be false. But I'm still getting an error, so something is wrong with my syntax. This has happened to me a lot. And I think when I tried it earlier, I had to not have these parentheses, which troubled me, but I think it doesn't like having those parentheses there. No, but I'm still getting an error. So let me go to my notes. I had the same problem doing it. It's very hard to do this. It's very easy to foul up the punctuation marks or something. So let me get my ones I saved from before. All right, here's the one I saved that I thought was so useful. I'm trying to zero in on the administrator. Took me a while to get it working. There, this one. So now select case when length password equals 1, then 1 over 0, else null, and you have to select from users where username equals administrator. And so this will get the right table and the right value. And this current condition is false, length of password equals 1. So when the condition is false, I should not get an error. And I don't get an error. And when the condition is true, I will get an error. So that would be length of password greater than 1. And I get an error. And so, just like before, the password is actually 20. So if I can try various numbers, and you'll find that equals 20 is true, so I'll get an error. All right, so the password is 20 characters long, so now all you have to have is the case that checks for one character of the password, and here's the one that I managed to get working. First I delete all the old stuff and make sure I get it all and preserve the semicolon, which has been a problem in the past. You have to be very careful. And so here's what it does. Select case substring password 11 equals A. That's the condition. And then That will create an error if it's true, but it won't create an error if it's false. And this gets it from the users table where username equals administrator to get the right password. So this condition is almost certainly false. And if it's false, I should have no error. And I have no error. So this is the query that I can now feed into the intruder. Right-click, send to intruder. And now in the intruder, I clear the old section marks, and I just want to change this right there. All right. And now I go to the payloads, and I just want to, I'm going to use my text editor to do this all at once, so I don't have to paste a whole bunch of times. I'm going to put it here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. There's all the numbers and all the letters. So I copy that, and I paste it in here. So that's what it's going to try, all those values, and it should work pretty fast. So there we go. One of them should be different. There it is. So the first letter is R. So I'm done with this one. And since the first letter is R, I go back to the positions, and I put an R here, and I change it to give me the first 2 characters of the password. And now I just do it again. And one of them should be different. And there it is. So the second letter is V, and so on. So now I can find it letter by letter. I just have to do this 20 times, which doesn't take too long at all. So it just took quite a while to get this structured correctly, so you could test one letter of the password. So that's the first one I wanted to show you. Let me go back to the proxy. All right, so let's try the one after this. All right, this one. All right, so that was this one. The next one is time delays. I thought this was very nice. I like this one a lot. So here I have a SQL injection vulnerability, and I don't even get an error message when queries fail. However, I can make it so that it does something that creates a time delay. So I want to make a 10-second delay. And so there's various payloads here. And let me see if I have saved notes for this one. I might have just saved notes for the next one. Let me get some junk off my screen here. All right. Oh, good. Okay. So this one here, I just had to try various time delays. I went to the cheat sheet, and they give you time delay code. Whoa. What? Oh, there. Okay. It just didn't load well. Let's get the lab loading, and let's get the cheat sheet loading. All right. So time delays are in here. There you go. So Oracle does this crazy thing. Microsoft has wait for delay. PostgreSQL has select PG sleep. And MySQL has select sleep. So they're all different. And I just tried them all. And I found that this is the one that worked. I think I might have had to go to the hint for it because I couldn't quite figure out. I tried to test this PostgreSQL one, but I wasn't quite sure what syntax to add it in. And the syntax that works, I'll show you. Okay, so I have to get the right query for starters, so I clear the history, and then I refresh the page here. That gives me a request that uses the tracking cookie here. So I send that to the repeater, and the first thing I always do is just send it without modifying it to make sure it's going to work, and it works. So now I add this here. So here's what you do. I kept trying to use union, but it's easier to just use string concatenation. So you take this string and then you add this string, sleep 10, and then a comment character. That will execute this command. So now if I send that and go to response, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, it just is slow now. So it was executing that command, and I can tell from the time delay. So that's all you have to do for that one. But of course, the next one is the one where you have to actually use that to pump out data. and that is blind SQL injection with time delays and information retrieval. And this one I thought was lots of fun. So let's load the lab. And it's the same story. You have a tracking cookie and a SQL query. All right, so we should be able to start with just the same time delay, and it should work. So let's go to burp, clear out the old stuff. Whoops, I want to clear everything. All right, and now refresh the home page of the lab. All right, and there's a get that we can put in the repeater. And if I send it unmodified, maybe I didn't hit the send button. Send. There, it answers right away within a second. All right, and if I put in the stuff that's probably still in my clipboard, okay, there's the delay. This should create the time delay, and it does. Okay, so now I'm back to the same setup as before. Now I want to pump out data, and I think the scenario is the same as before. There is a table called users with columns called username and password, and we want to find the password for the administrator user. So I was able to make one. I had to use the hints, though, for this one, because once again, there was a strange syntax used to inject the extra characters. So here, this is the one that worked. I had to use this %3b, which is the ASCII for a semicolon. If you put in a literal semicolon, it'll be treated as the end of a cookie value and start the next cookie value. But apparently, URL encoding the cookie value is enough to get it past the web's cookie interpreter into whatever it has to go, into like the SQL. So this is what you do: apostrophe %3b. Now you can put a select here, which would, the result of this will be concatenated, I think, with the other. I'm not sure what the semicolon does. This is Postgres SQL. And so I guess this is a Postgres SQL syntax where a semicolon separates two select queries instead of a union. So I don't entirely understand why it's a %3b, but it works. Now I have select case when a condition that's true, then sleep, otherwise sleep 0. So if the condition is true, it should be slow, and if the condition is false, it should be fast. So let's try this. And it's slow. So we're able to get the delay when the condition is true. And if I put in a condition that's false, 1 = 2, then I should not get a delay. So I send, and you see it came back right away. You can see the button changed color right away. So this is how you can now do a query to see if something is true or not. And so all you have to do is arrange it to have you can put the length of the password in there, and to pump out the characters of the password, you just have to build one that checks for one character, and this is the one that I managed to come up with. I need the semicolon. There, that's the original unmodified situation. And here you go. It's select case, concatenate, pipe, then select case when password 11 = A, then divide by 0. Wait a minute, that seems like that's from the wrong one. Okay. The right one is down here, pardon me. This is the one that had a time delay. And boy, it took me a while to get it working. This one. There. With the apostrophe %3b thing, then select where substring ABC11 = A. I just used a literal string here. All right, and got it from users. And I think this one worked. This was one of my steps toward getting things to work. This one here had the time delay. So I'm able to ask a question about a string, and I'm able to take data from users. So that's a step in the right direction. And the fundamental technique for all these things is to try to move in small steps. Get something that works, then make a small change and get that working. Otherwise, you tend to go mad. Because the problem here is you can't see what you're doing. You don't get error messages or anything. You'll get syntax errors until you get something exactly right. So I was able to make a condition where I looked at 1, and here is the one that worked with a time delay, a small step forward from that one. It took me several other steps to get here, but I'm just going to show you the one that worked, was this one. So apostrophe %3b, then a select, when substring username 11 equals A, then PG sleep, other sleep 0, and from users where username equals administrator. So here I'm getting the name administrator, and the first letter is A. So if I send this, the response will be delayed because the condition is true. And if I make the condition false, the response will not be delayed. Let's try that. If I make this a B, the first letter of administrator is not B. So if I send that, it comes back right away. You can see right there from the button. So now I can do this. So now all I have to do is put password here. And this will do as my template. This will be slow if it's true and fast if it's false. So if I run it now, it's fast because that's false. And now all I have to do is send this one to the intruder and clear the old section marks and put section marks around that character. And now do the same thing we've done before. So I go to, am I in the intruder? I am in the intruder. Oh, here, payloads. Okay. Now I'm going to copy and paste my payloads. All right, all the letters and the numbers, and then start the attack. And this is kind of fun. I always wondered why they made the delay so long, but it really works here. They're all coming to be the same length. They're all coming in, but one of them is not going to load. And it's 0. All these have loaded. This one is not loading. So the first character is 0. It'll take 10 seconds to load, so it stands right out here. So I'll stop this, and now I know the first character is 0. So I put a 0 here. And I pick out the first 2 characters of the password and run it again. And I look for one that's slow, and there it is. So the second character is R. That's why the 10-second delay really works in Burp Intruder. And that's it. Now we're on the road. The second character is R. So I can take the first 3 characters and so on. There, the third character is P, and so you can trace out the password character by character. So that's the one I wanted to show you there. And that's, now I didn't do these next 2 require Burp Pro. You can't do it with the free version. So you'd have to get a trial version of Pro. And the last one I didn't look at much. I think I'm not going to bother doing the 3 hardest ones in SQL for demonstrations. I'll just move on to a different topic next week. But anyway, that's what I wanted to show you this week for SQL injection. So I'm going to stop this video.